I'm joined now by the opposition leader, Sussan Ley. Sussan Ley, great to see you. It's a first for you on this show as opposition leader. Can I, though, start with this? On Monday, as you know, I criticised you for not immediately calling a press conference over Anthony Albanese's disastrous decision to recognise Palestine and giving, as far as I can tell, just one interview. Your office has told me you had reasons for that. What were they?
I was out in the western part of my electorate, Andrew. I actually didn't hear your criticism. I'm happy to come on your show, and I think it's my second time as opposition leader. And I'm very happy to talk about the issue that you've raised, because you're absolutely right. The Prime Minister has made a complete mess of this, topped today by our Prime Minister quoting a listed terror organisation's statements in defence of his position and relying on those. So are the good guys in Hamas saying the right thing and the bad guys in Hamas saying the wrong thing? And if that's the case, which part of Hamas was responsible for the atrocities on October the 7th? I mean, you're quite right, Andrew. We in this country should be defending liberal democracies. And I thought our government would do that, defend the liberal democracy in the Middle East, that is Israel, and support our strongest ally, the US, in its statements about how peace can be brought to the region.
Look, I find this absolutely extraordinary. I heard Alexander Downer, the longest-serving foreign minister that we have had, and I think probably the best, say today it's the worst foreign policy decision he can recall an Australian government making since World War II. I mean, Hamas really is making a fool of this bloke, isn't he? Isn't it?
To see our Prime Minister stand up there and sound as if he has some sort of gotcha moment in response to the legitimate criticism that is coming at him from everywhere on this issue by saying he's found a statement from Hamas saying another statement by Hamas wasn't correct. I mean, this is ridiculous, and it's not supporting what we all want to see, which is peace in the region. And the truth is that peace can only be brokered by the US. And the US has called this out for what it is. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said it's unhelpful, and early recognition of a Palestinian state is actually going to mean that it takes longer for a ceasefire in Gaza and for peace to return. So we all want to see the war end. We want to see Gazans fed. We want to see the Israeli hostages released. But this is actually an obstacle to all of that. There can be and should be no reward for terror, and there can be no recognition without peace. The conditions, and we saw them, that Anthony Albanese said that he had placed on his decision are unachievable, and it became rapidly clear that the recognition that he is going to give is going to be completely unconditional.
Well, let's not call them conditions, because they're simply empty promises. That's all he's got. I mean, there's no way that Hamas, the Palestinian Authority is going to hold elections within the next month before he recognises Palestine. So, you know, it's just a promise that, in my view, it'll probably never, ever fulfil.
How can they exclude Hamas from those elections, and how can they dismantle the terrorist infrastructure that is Hamas? And I don't know, they seem to want to quote part of Hamas that they need to keep on side in some way. I mean, this is how preposterous these statements today are. And my point is that they are roadblocks in the way of peace in the region, and the requirement that, well, the wish that we have for a two-state solution is further away from reality than ever. And I'm very disappointed to see our Prime Minister make such a mess of this, particularly with respect to the most important alliance that underpins the critical geostrategic circumstances that we find ourselves in, and that is the US alliance.
Oh, look, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Sussan Ley, back to home. The government's going to next week hold its economic roundtable, which Albanese claims will tackle our disastrous productivity, which has cratered, especially since his government was elected. But a leaked report from the Treasury to the government suggests what this round table of the government and experts is already expected to achieve, like it's already a done deal, a pre-arranged, I don't know. And it seems to be hardly about productivity. It's mostly about speeding up housing approvals, creating a national artificial intelligence plan to cut environmental red tape, things like that. The Treasurer today denied this document proved the roundtable results hadn't been rigged beforehand. Here he is.
I don't think it should come as a surprise to anyone that the Treasury has been briefing us on those issues that have been raised in the very substantial consultation that we have undertaken.
Has he got a good point there?
He's completely able to be seen through, if I can put it that way, Andrew. I see straight through this whole exercise. It is a stitch up. It has been choreographed in advance. The Productivity Commission has released various papers. There's been toing and froing between the usual people who would comment. And, you know, what I really feel annoyed about is that people are going to give up their day and go to this roundtable in good faith. The Treasury has leaked quite a bit of information coming from it. But the big picture is this. Australians are living through a period of declining productivity, a fall in living standards, the greatest fall in living standards in the developed world. They need a government that backs them in. They need a government that gets out of their way, a parliament that understands what their life is like, and an appreciation from their government that growth is the most critical thing of all here. Now, as Liberals, we understand this. Growth lifts services. Growth lifts incomes and growth gives hope. But there's nothing in this agenda that is about that. It is all about raising taxes. And the leaks and the reading between the lines demonstrates that that's exactly what is coming out of this roundtable, a complete stitch up.
It's 3 months now since you were elected the leader of the Liberals and became the opposition leader too. How tough has it been?
I feel very grateful every day to hold this position, Andrew, and I really mean that. And two things give me energy when I wake up in the morning. One is the incredible team that I have in my parliamentary party, and they're out there fighting the fight and making the case. And the other is that our Liberal values and what we have to fight for on behalf of Australians, hardworking Australians, are tested and timeless and so needed today, because we are here for those hardworking Australians, people who do work incredibly hard, who take risks, who give back, who build this country,
I was actually asking how tough it had been for you, Sussan Ley, because you've always tended to fly under the radar. And indeed, a couple of weeks ago, the Daily Telegraph asked 100 people in the street to identify you from a photograph. Not a single one could. I mean, what's the issue, do you think, here? And how are you going to change things to cut through?
I'm introducing myself to Australians wherever I go, and I'm finding that people do recognise me, and maybe they don't from a photograph that doesn't look like the way they see me every day. I'm not focused on what the media says about these things at all, Andrew. I'm really focused on what I need to do in this role and how incredibly important it is. And the hard work is something I'm not afraid of. I'm known for my work ethic, and as I said, I love the Liberal brand. It's the brand that I stuck on my caravan that I lived in when I was a shearer's cook and towed up and down the Murray River in 2001 when I was running for Parliament. And no one thought I would win, and I did by 206 votes. And I'm so proud of that brand and what it represents, and the golden thread of aspiration that weaves through every section of Australian society that is represented by the Liberal Party. And so when you ask me how tough it is for me,
Sussan Ley,
I have the best role in promoting it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm wondering whether you need to change things up. And maybe, the whole conviction politics isn't, I don't think, really coming through. You take net zero. I mean, you've decided you're going to take up to a year to decide whether you think this damaging global warming target should be scrapped. That's going to be a year of drift, of uncertainty, of seeming like you lack the courage or the understanding to reach a decision. I'm not sure that's going to be a cut-through issue for you if you're going to dodge it for that long, don't you think?
Not at all, and not dodging it. And I've said that we will take the time that we need to get this right, and we need to have an energy policy that does reduce emissions, plays our part. By the way, the government's emissions are going up, not down. Your viewers would well know that, and also delivers a reliable energy grid for households and businesses. But the most important game right now when energy is mentioned is holding the government to account for their 82% renewable energy by 2030 fairy tale, for the fact that power prices are going up and there are broken promises. That's what my team is doing, because failures of this government are our number one priority, because every opposition's task, firstly, is to hold the government to account. And while I recognise Australians have voted in this government,
that's a good point.
I also know that they are breaking their promises.
No, that's true. That's true, except, of course, everyone will then ask, but what's your solution? And you won't have one for a year. So I just wonder whether that's going to be a problem. But Sussan Ley, thank you so much indeed for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.